Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Liv, I'm an independent author, and this is not a writing related video. I had the idea, like basically, I, number one, am on a time crunch, which is why I couldn't wait for my hair to dry, and I have to hope that my camera has enough battery to bang this out. So yeah, I had the idea for this because I'm gonna get my line edits back any day now, and I was going through a list of like autistic experiences and traits that I wanted to make sure I covered in Violet's novel. And because like there were so many, like basically when I like was working on both Violet's novel and Saving Summer at the same time, I was like figuring out which traits I wanted each character to have, which experiences I wanted to tell through each character. And I was going through the ones I had for Violet, and I just was thinking about this this specific topic, which has been on my mind lately, and I was like, you know what, why don't I just make a separate video about this topic? And so here we are, fresh out of the shower and on a time crunch. So we're gonna be talking about one of the biggest social cues that I struggled with growing up, which was boundaries. And everybody who knew me in middle school is watching this like, yeah, no shit, Liv. Anyway, I don't think anybody who knew me in middle school is watching this actually. And so on that note, I just want to say that once I knew I had autism, like knew that I needed help with social cues, my perspective on things was very different. Like when I knew like that I wouldn't be able to figure out everything, when I knew that like there was a reason I wasn't figuring everything out on instinct. So pre-diagnosis, I just like, if I didn't understand something, I didn't understand why I didn't understand it, first of all, and I didn't really know how to ask for help because I didn't know like that was something other people would like know how to help me with, or you know what I'm saying? So I just, my understanding of social cues growing up was very interesting looking back. A lot of my like social cue knowledge I picked up from the TV shows I was watching, which in elementary school, I watched a lot of cartoons, okay? I like a lot of my personality was slapstick comedy. I was like, this is what the people like. Everything is a bit. And I just like, I always wanted to be silly, and I still love being silly, but I was just like, I thought that being silly was like the way to get people to like me. And looking back, I'm like, people definitely thought I was weird. Like even before, like, because I knew in middle school that people thought I was weird, but like in elementary school, I was like, yeah, people loved me in elementary school. And I'm looking back, I'm like, no, people definitely thought I was weird. Even if they like weren't mean to me, like they definitely thought I was weird. I talked about the Click series in my last video that I made. And that was like what I read very often, like almost exclusively in 6th and 7th grade. It was just me rereading that series. And I remember like reading it for the first time in 5th grade and thinking like, okay, I'm about to start middle school. Like this is how I have to be cool. I have to have all designer things. And my parents' tax bracket was just laughing in my face at that one. But I would pick up like, okay, I have to be mean, I guess, to fit in. And like, I'm not gonna get into the whole thing, but I'm like, yeah, the things I picked up from the Click books definitely made me a worse person. That's not Lisa Harrison's fault. That's like genuinely just me being dumb. But yeah, if it wasn't TV shows, movies, or books that I was getting my social cues from, if I needed advice, like if I needed help, especially when it came to dating and crushes, I had kind of two other options. I had my parents, whose advice was not always outdated, but like, I'll get more into this one later. One of the advices my mom gave me was when I wanted my crush's phone number, she was like, you can just look it up in the phone book. Like it'll be there, his home phone number, you can just call that. Which was very much what people did when she was my age at the time, but not really what people were doing in the 2010s. And I just didn't think to question it, which I will get more into that later in this video. But the other source I had The other source I had was my friends, who like, most of my friends were also not like autistic socially awkward, but they just like straight up did not care about fitting in and being popular like I did. And like, if I were to go back to 2013 and like go up to 17-year-old Liv and say, this is the person in your high school friend group who is married before you. One of them made sense. There's two that got married. So there's two people in my high school friend group that are married. One of them I probably could have predicted. But the other one, if I was like, this is somebody who got married before you, I think 17-year-old me would just think that I was a scam. Like, she would not believe it. She'd be like, there is no way. She does not even think about dating at all. Like, so I'm just like I did have some friends that actually knew what they were talking about. But it was like, the ones I hung out with most were the ones that like also didn't have a lot of experience dating. So like, they would give me advice, but I'd be less willing to believe their advice, kind of, because I was like, yeah, you and what experience? So yeah, that was kind of like my bank of where I got my social cues from growing up. Like, before I got a diagnosis and was like, oh, wait a second, like, I don't know these things and there's a reason. I don't even know where, like, I literally woke up like an hour ago and my brain is still booting up. So I'm doing this while I have time. For the most part, growing up, I learned social cues as I went. Like, I was very much learn everything as you go. And that contributed to a lot of the behaviors I did that made people think I was weird, which I was weird. Like, I'm not gonna say like the way I acted was not weird, because it was. And another thing is, like, with getting social cues from TV shows and everything, I watched kids shows for way too long. Like, I genuinely did not know what other shows people were watching. Like, I guess in my like teenage brain, like early teenage brain, I expected Nickelodeon to evolve with me instead of me evolving to other channels. So like, I was fully watching iCarly and Hannah Montana in like 10th grade, 11th grade even. Like, I was also watching Degrassi and That 70s Show. But I watched kids shows for way too long and like would be like so put off by like how corny some of them were, like how like the like ways that they tried to like censor things. I'm like, really? Like, who's falling for that? I don't know, maybe the 10-year-olds that are the target age range for this, not the 16-year-old that is watching it. But you know, and then especially when social media came into my life, like even like with just sending emails, like there was a lot of email etiquette that I straight up did not know. That sounds so strange to say, but like before I had Facebook, I would communicate with my friends by sending like chain email updates about my life. And you know, like I feel like there was a time where that was not chain emails, but like mass group emails. And I feel like there's a time where like that was the thing to do. I don't know if it's when I was doing it, but another thing is that I would send these mass emails about the randomest things. Like, I am so mad I don't have my elementary, early middle school email account access to that anymore. But the things I email my friends about, I'd be like, hey guys, I went to Valco Mall today. It was very depressing. Send. Hey guys, I ordered a fancy mocktail at Denny's and it came with a little plastic sword and it fell into my lap, like directly between my legs. So it was like I was getting stabbed in the crotch. Send. I would like, or it would be like, I saw a lady at the mall with a massive camel toe. Send. And I'm just like, yes, I was 13, but like also like what? I'm like who asked for that? Like, I fear that those are things I would have just posted as a Facebook status if I had had Facebook at that time. So like, thank you to my parents for making me wait until I was just like a teeny tiny bit less cringe. And when I got Facebook, I'm just like, my parents got Facebook at the same time as me. Okay, we were learning this stuff together. Like my friends at the time who had Facebook, like, I don't know if they were really like, the ones that hung out the most weren't really concerned with like the right way to use social media, I guess. And so like, I didn't think to like, I guess they didn't think to like give me advice on what I was doing or wasn't doing. And just like, I would just try to fit in. I'd comment on people's statuses when I thought I had something relevant to say. I would post things, I would post pictures of myself. And like, it was worse before it was worse before I was diagnosed. And then I was like overthinking everything. But I remember like in my senior year, so like well after I was diagnosed, I was on tech crew for the spring musical, and I wanted to feel like I was more a part of the cast than I was, which was my own fault. I was cast in ensemble, and then I like had like a little crash out, like not entirely about drama club. It was like a whole bunch of crash outs all culminating in me deciding to not be in the musical. And then later an opportunity came up to be on tech for the musical, and I was like, yay, I'm involved. So I wanted to feel like I was very involved. Like everybody's posting all these selfies together, and like my friends, like I loved to vlog. My friends were like, that's really weird that you like taking videos of everything. And I didn't really know what vlogging was back then. But like once I like started watching other YouTube vloggers, I was like, oh, that's what I like to do. And that's when I tried to make this channel in 2014 as a vlog channel. But then my friends like still didn't want to be on camera. And it was like, anyway, getting off track here. I would try to take pictures, and my friends would be like, don't post those, I don't look good in those. And I remember I was like, okay, well I can't take pictures of them, but I want to share my experiences of being on tech for the musical. So I would like take selfies in the tech booth, take pictures of the lights, cue board, whatever. And I like went backstage and took pictures of all the like mess in the dressing room. And I was like, oh, look at all these pizza boxes, look at like everybody's phone sitting on this table, like isn't it so crazy what a mess it is back here. And I remember everybody, like not everybody, I remember multiple people coming up to me and being like, why did you take pictures of that? And why did you post them? Like that was really weird. And it was just like a flashback in that moment to like, oh, that's right, I don't know what I'm doing. And so I think I've taken them down. They're probably not still on my Facebook, I don't know. But yeah, I didn't know what was weird to post. And I remember like, there was a significant portion of my sophomore year of high school where I was grounded from being on my computer. No, I was grounded specifically from Facebook. And I had planted some cucumbers in Farmville that like right before I got grounded. So I asked my mom if she could log in and harvest my cucumbers. And I remember she loved Farmville and Frontierville and all the villes. And so she would use my account to send herself stuff, and she'd be like, oh, by the way, I sent your friends stuff. I took care of like their farms for them, like, and I added some stuff to your farm. And basically like she was like doing it for the progression of her own farm, but she was like also helping me and like sending stuff to my friends. And I remember one day when I was still grounded, I like went onto my profile when my dad was asleep just to like look at my profile. And there were like 500 posts about Farmville and Frontierville asking for things. And like the way the posts were worded, it's like Liv's making babies over here on the frontier. And I'm just like, no, 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 no. And so I'm like deleting all of them thinking like nobody's gonna know. And the next day my mom called my dad and she was like, Liv's entire farm is gone. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, was she on recently? And my dad like went into like the metadata or something of my Facebook account and was like, she logged in last night from this location, from this IP address. And I was just like, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to delete all the stupid posts because they were cringe. Like not any cringier than any of the stuff I was posting probably, but I was just like, I was afraid of how I was going to be perceived. And so yeah, and I guess I accidentally deleted my whole farm. But yeah, so social media was rough. I feel like I've reiterated that point so many times in these videos, but where I talk about the autistic experience. But yeah, it was very rough. Another thing I struggled with specifically with boundaries was the can versus should. And this was especially bad before I got diagnosed and knew that, you know, maybe I didn't have the best grasp of social cues. So like, in 8th grade, I really liked this guy, and me and my friend, I made it so we would start eating lunch close to his lunch spot so I could look at him. And then he moved lunch spots because he caught on to that. And so I moved my lunch spot to be closer to him because I can. The quad is huge. I can sit wherever I want. I'm gonna find him, I'm gonna sit near him. There's no rule saying that I can't do that. There's no rule saying I can't look at the guy that I like in class instead of paying attention to the math assignment. There's no rule saying that I can't just randomly change my lunch spot to happen to be closer to him, until he eventually started eating inside the band room. And if you weren't in band, you couldn't eat in the band room. So I was just like, in retrospect, probably for the best that I wasn't spending a lot of time in the band room of that particular middle school in 2009. But anyway, but yeah, it was just very much like, just because I can do something doesn't mean that I should. But I wasn't really, like, the should part wasn't really clicking for me. It's like, just because I can look at his Facebook page through my friend who has an account. I didn't have an account at that time, but my friend has a Facebook account, so I can look at his pictures and save them to my phone. Just because I can hide behind a bush and take a picture of him at the ice cream cart after school and make it my phone wallpaper, because nobody ever touched my phone but me at that time. I'm like, just, you know, there's no rule saying I can't do any of that. And like, looking back at just how insane I was about crushes in middle school, like ignoring the fact that like my crushes on boys in middle school were like very much performative because I didn't realize that I was gay at the time. But like, assuming that I, like, whether or not I actually had feelings for any of these boys, like, I was insane. Genuinely, the fact that none of them filed a restraining order against me, like, I just, if the guy that I liked my sophomore year of high school thinks that he had it bad, then like, because he's the only one who ever like made a big deal about the way I acted towards him. If he thinks he had it bad, he is so lucky he did not meet me in 6th grade. Like, yeah, I think middle school me needed to be like 5150 or something. Like, it was not good. Just all of that to say. And then like going back to like my mom pointing out, like, his phone number is in the phone book. You can get his phone number from the phone book. We didn't have like a physical phone book, but she's like, oh, the phone book has a website. So I'm literally like getting this guy's phone number off the internet, my 8th grade crush, like going onto the whitepages.com, getting his home phone number, leaving messages, and then his address is there, of course, because that is also public domain information. There's no reason I shouldn't be able to know that. I had my, I was going to drop off a birthday present for him, but I was grounded, so my dad did it for me, and I don't think that was, I don't know what would have been more weird, but I just like just because information is public domain does not mean that it's like okay for me to call that number or go to that address. Like, that's still a weird thing to do. And it just wasn't clicking for pre-diagnosis Liv that perhaps just because information is public domain doesn't mean that I should. And like, after I got diagnosed, I was more careful, but I still feel like I definitely trusted my own judgment a little bit too much. And I am very thankful for the people who knew about my diagnosis and were patient with me. But I also understand that, like, depending on the severity of the boundary I had crossed, like, people weren't always going to be patient with me. Like, I was thinking about one of my ex-best friends recently. Like, I just, every time I go through, like, I don't know why every time I go through like something traumatic, like, I always, like, my brain is always like, hey, remember this traumatic situation? But anyway, yeah, I just, she's been on my mind, like, more than typical recently. But the situation with her is kind of a good example for what I mean about like the severity of the boundary. So basically, when we stopped being friends, she was like, I would very much appreciate if you would stop looking at my social media. Specifically the one involved here was Tumblr. She like deleted me off Facebook. That was the only other one she used, I think. But this was specifically about Tumblr. She's like, I'd very much appreciate if you would just unfollow my Tumblr and stop looking at my blog and just leave me alone. And 18-year-old me was like, so like she was 17, I was 18 at this point. And teenage me, I was just like, it's a public page. you can't stop me. Your blog is not password protected. Like, it wasn't one of those, like, you have to enter a password to view it. Like, it's a public page. You can't stop me from looking. If you're not gonna talk to me, I'm gonna use this only connection I have to you to cope with the fact that you don't wanna be friends anymore. And I'm just gonna keep checking up on you. And this is like very shortly before Tumblr had like an actual blocking feature. Where you could block someone from following your blog. So I would still see her in my feed, whatever. And then eventually, like, she did block me, and that was around the time that it like started to click for me that like, hey, maybe just because I can doesn't mean I should. Like, maybe if I claim to love this person, I should actually respect her boundaries. Just a thought. And that was like very shortly after, because like I remember my first thought after she blocked me was like, well, how am I gonna get around this? Because it's a public page, I just log out. And it's just like, when I say I needed professional help, and like the thing is, I was in a teen therapy group at the time, and years later I looked back at like the notes from that teen therapy group and saw just like how much I was being gaslit by my psychiatrist, and I'm just like, oh yeah, no, like that, like I was not getting professional help. I was getting professionally made worse. But yeah, so I did eventually realize that that was a boundary I needed to actually respect, and like, just because I can view her page while logged out doesn't mean that I should. And the other thing with that is like, I had this mindset that like, I thought very critically about social media from like the age of like this, I think this started to click for me kind of around the time I was 16, but I'm like, if you have either your full name or a picture of yourself on a public social media page, or both, like you need to expect that that knowledge is public domain and anybody can know it. Like, you don't have secrets if you have a public social media page with either your picture or your last name or both. And I remember like when I was like, there was this time I was in college and somebody I followed on Twitter got really upset that like somebody sent her tweets to her parents, so now she didn't get to tell her parents this very personal thing about her life because somebody had sent them her tweets. I'm like, your last name and your picture is on this not private Twitter account. Like, I genuinely don't know what you expected. And like, this was like somebody in her 20s. So I'm like, maybe like I understand like a teenager not thinking that critically about it, but like in your 20s, I'm like, get real. But I, you know, at 17, 18 now, was like, her Tumblr page is public. She's had pictures of herself, not her last name, but she's posted pictures of herself. So anything she posts on here is information that she's gonna assume everybody is able to know. And when I made my first coming out video, I name dropped her. And that video, I only had it up for like 2 months before like I started to realize like perhaps that was not her thought process. And so I like mentioned, I didn't say her last name in my coming out video, but I was like, yeah, my friend, this name, and she was starting to realize that she was bisexual at the same time that I was starting to realize maybe I'm not straight. And just looking back, thank goodness it only took me 2 months to realize I shouldn't have done that. That whole video was such a mess. Like, genuinely don't know what I was thinking, but especially like literally outing her. I pray to God that like in those 2 months that it was up, nobody who knew her and would have known exactly who I was talking about from that video and wasn't supposed to know that she was realizing she was bisexual at the time. I pray to God that nobody saw that who like would have like just so the fact that it was even up for 2 months is just like, my understanding was that this is a public page, her picture is on it, so this information is public domain. And while yes, that is true, can versus should. Like, I don't think she was thinking that critically at the age of 17 about that, like about like what was public domain information on Tumblr. But I'm still so sorry. And then just, there's so many examples in this one friendship breakup of live can versus live should. And one particular thing that I remember that I've like talked to my therapist about this moment, like I've rehashed this specific day with my therapist, the one that I started seeing in college that doesn't gaslight me, several times, when like it's come up in my memory, because basically I had a day off. I didn't have classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I decided I was gonna hang out with one of my friends before school started. And she invited me to like come on campus with her, and I'm like, it's California, so like the campus is like mostly outside, like if you know what I'm talking about. It wasn't like I had to like go through a door. But I was like, yeah, like people hang out, like I knew people who like came and hung out on campus before or after school all the time after they graduated, and I want to hang out with my friend. So sure, I will go visit my old high school and hang out with her until the bell rings, and then I'll like leave because it's weird for me to be there. You know, like it kind of was, like it definitely was weird for me to be there in the first place, but like it was gonna be weirder after school started. But yeah, so I remember I took her to like the spot that me and my high school friend group would hang out in the morning. That my ex-best friend was not part of that group. She was my friend separately. But yeah, my other friend, I took her to that spot and I was like, yeah, this is where I hang out every morning. It's, you know, just like old times, graduated a year ago, and it's totally not weird. And I remember out of the corner of my eye, I saw a girl who looked like my ex-best friend in the distance. And she didn't hang out like in the vicinity of that spot when I went to that school. So like I wasn't expecting to see her, but I was like, I'm 99% sure that is her. I don't think she would want to see me here, so let's go somewhere else. And the bell rang shortly after that, so I left anyway. And I remember going on Tumblr like an hour or two later, because I was home I didn't have class that day, I had nothing to do. And I was just scrolling through Tumblr, and I saw a post from her, because this is before she had the ability to block me. And she was like, my stalker was at school today, and I was so freaked out. And I'm just like, the panic attack that I had, like I was in like some kind of manic state for 2 days after that, because I was just like, I tried so hard. Like, what do you mean? Like, I tried so hard to make sure she didn't see me. Like, I was, it's an open campus. Like, I had every right to be there. Like, you know, and I even specifically went out of my way to like go away from her. And then like I was like venting to one of my friends about it. And then one of my friends messaged her on Tumblr, like to stand up for me, which like, love her for standing up for me, but I'm just like, you just made everything worse. And I'm just like, I was just like, I didn't understand what I had done wrong, because I had specifically left. And I think it's one of those things that was like, yeah, I could have been there, but I shouldn't have. And I should have just left the post alone. Like, it was just, I so badly wanted to give her context and let her know, like, I was not there to see you. It was not about you. I specifically left so that you wouldn't have to deal with me. Like, I was not there for you. Like, please don't freak out. Like, please, like, be calm. Like, go about your day. Do not worry about me being there for you. I very much was not. Like, I wanted her to have that context, not so that she wouldn't see me as a stalker, but so that she wouldn't, like, be freaked out. Also so that she wouldn't see me as a stalker, though, because like I wasn't trying to. For once in my life, I wasn't trying to. But looking back, like when I went over this with my therapist, I was like, I went to multiple performing arts events after I graduated because she was there and I wanted to see her. So why wouldn't she see me on campus and make the connection that I was there for her? And it's one of those things that just did not click for me in the moment. And I just did not realize that I was crossing that boundary. And I'm like, in my defense, I had no idea that was the area she would be hanging out in. If I had any, like, inkling of a thought that she might have been in the vicinity of that spot, I never would have gone there in the first place. I don't know why I'm like trying to justify my actions from over 10 years ago at this point. But I'm just like that was a boundary that I did not intend to cross. And I remember a couple months later, I was meeting a different friend at the mall, and I was walking through the entrance of the mall to the food court, and I had this like thought. I was like, it would be so crazy if I ran into my crush and his girlfriend here. That would probably be like the most awkward thing that could possibly happen. No, the most awkward thing that could possibly happen would be if I ran into my ex-best friend while I was here, because then she'd think I was here to stalk her, because I was still like pressed about that. And then I look up as I'm approaching the food court, and I see her walking through the door of the food court with somebody else, and I duck before she can see me. Like the way I like nearly twisted my ankle running out of that food court before she could see me, because I'm just like, oh hell no, we're not doing this again. And I'm just like doing some math in my head. I was like, it was like the midnight premiere of the Hunger Games or something. I'm like, she's there to see like her favorite thing in the whole world. I do not want to ruin this for her by being here and her thinking I'm there to see her. So I just like ran out of the food court. I don't think she saw me. I remember I went on her blog the next day, because I still wasn't blocked, because you couldn't do that yet, and like refreshed it several times to make sure she didn't post about seeing me, because I was just so paranoid after that one experience. But it was just one of those things. It's like I wasn't trying to cross a boundary, but then like I also didn't look at it from her perspective, where like it very much would have looked like I was there for her, and I didn't really like think critically about that situation. And so that's like something that as I got older and started actually seeing a therapist who wasn't gaslighting me, it was like I had to like learn, like, not only am I choosing to not cross these boundaries, not only am I like being intentional about my social cues, but I also have to think of how it looks to other people, which wasn't really something that was a concern for me in my like late teen years. And like around that same time, like keep in mind, most of my friends at church were younger than me, because like the people my age already had their own clique by the time I started going to youth group, and it was just, they weren't like mean to me, but it was like they very much had their own established clique. And so the people that I became close to were sophomores or freshmen when I was a senior. And I started school a year early, so I was 17 when I was a senior, 17 when I graduated, 17, 18, yeah, I was like newly 18 when they were newly sophomores and juniors. And I would hang out with them. I wasn't allowed to go to youth group anymore because I had aged out of it, but I would like hang out with them at church events. And I remember my mom telling me once, she's like, she didn't say who said it, but she said like some of the adults at church were saying that like it was very predatory of me to hang out with the sophomores and juniors when I had graduated. And I'm like, genuinely, I was just so shocked by that, because I'm like, you know, they're my peers. Like I'm not trying to do anything. Like I just didn't understand how it could be seen as predatory. And then like my last year of theater camp, I was literally the oldest person there. Like you could be up to 17 there. And I remember when I was 15, there was a 17-year-old there, and she was like one of my favorite people there. Like one of the only people who I remember like standing up for me. But anyway, I was 17, and most of the people there were like 13, 14, and those are the people that I made friends with. And there is a part of Violet's novel that I'll talk about that more with, like just assimilating into a younger group of people because I'm there, like because like we're all there for the same reason, and like not seeing how it was weird. But like looking back like a year or so after that, I was like, yeah, I was 17 years old texting 13-year-olds. That was kind of weird. I wasn't being predatory. Like I was just like literally like being like one of them. Like I just, because of my autism, like I feel like mentally I sometimes like maturity level, I was like, I had a younger maturity level than my age. And so like I felt like I fit in better with younger people, but like that's still like, I didn't think of how it would look to other people. Hi, editing Liv. I feel like I didn't explain that very well. So basically what I was trying to say is like, because of my autism and my lack of, and my like less good understanding of social cues, I feel like sometimes my general vibe is like a couple years younger than I actually am. But I'm also like very aware that like I am 29 years old, and like, so like just because my general vibe is a little bit younger than I am sometimes, like I am also aware that I am still the age that I am, and there are boundaries with that. I didn't think of like the optics of that. Like I had no bad intentions whatsoever, did not think of the optics. And just like the first time I babysat, I was like hanging out with these 10-year-olds when I was 18, and just fully like talking to them like I was one of them, because I'm like, this is the group I'm with. I'm gonna assimilate. I'm gonna pick up their social cues. And like, I'm like Kirby. I'm gonna suck up their social cues and imitate them. I feel like that's not a great description of what Kirby does. Hi, it's Editing Liv. I feel like I didn't explain well enough that, like, I just feel like I forgot the part where like I became very aware that I would do that. And like, that is something I am very intentionally not doing as a teacher. I'm very careful, like, not to vibe so much with my students that like I Kirby absorb their social cues and try to become one of them. Like I am very intentional about not doing that. So I just wanted to make that very clear. And so like, I will talk more about that with Violet's novel. There is a specific scene in there that I specifically put in to kind of reflect that experience as Violet. So yeah, we'll talk about that more when I do my deep dive into Violet's novel. But the other thing is, the more I started thinking critically about my social cues and the optics and just all of that, I was hypervigilant about my presence in my friendships and relationships. And it was this constant balance of, am I doing too much? Am I not doing enough? Am I doing too much? Am I not doing enough? And especially with dating, because I had been so batshit insane in childhood with crushes, I was just so like, I was like, I don't want this person to think that I like them too much. And looking back at like my most recent ex-girlfriend, I'm just like, I remember like being so skeptical to believe that she actually liked me, that I was just like, I don't want her to think that I like her too much, so I'm gonna tone it back. And so like we broke up, and I'm like, did she even know how much I actually liked her, or did she think I was just kind of vibing? And like, don't want to talk about like, and like, I don't want to talk about my current dating life. That's just, you know, my private life. I'm not going to get into it, but I'm just like, it's something that I'm conscious of in future endeavors, that I want to make sure I'm balanced between not being too much and also not being enough. And there's so much that goes into how I express my feelings, especially after like the trauma that I went through this past year. There's like so much that goes into like my, like the behavioral choices I make in dating, and I just don't want to get into all of it. Maybe in a year I'll be like, let's talk about what it's like to date with autism, and that will be a video that I make. But I'm just, I'm trying to keep my private life very private right now. So, yeah. And just just moving on from that, I will say as an adult, joining a sorority was terrifying. And I will absolutely be talking about that with my deep dive of Violet's novel, because that is kind of the premise, is her joining a sorority, moving out on her own for the first time, which were terrifying for me, because it was like, I am on my own. I have nobody in this dorm but me. I have to make these social cue choices by myself, with just going off my own knowledge and a prayer. And joining a sorority, I was like, this is a very new social environment. There are so many social cues about being in a sorority that I'm gonna have to learn as I go, and what if they're not patient with me? And so it was terrifying. It was a great experience in the end, and I will talk more about that in my deep dive of Violet's novel, like I said, but I did just want to put that out there, that like, going into that was terrifying for me. All right, I am running short on time, so I have a couple more things in my notes for what I wanted to talk about. And so one of the things that just drives me insane as an adult, is silent signals. And, cause I'm just like, I am not a mind reader, even if I'm not a mind reader, first of all, but second of all, I already have trouble interpreting social cues that are obvious sometimes. Okay, so like if you're giving me a silent social cue, like that's like 10 times more work for me. And like I've gotten over the years good at like incorporating like knowledge of silent cues into my repertoire of things that I know, but just sometimes I'm just like, and I do tell people who come into my life, I'm like, you will need to be direct with me. You cannot count on me to pick up on silent signals all the time. Like, sometimes it is obvious, but sometimes it's not. And so I'm just like, can you just like do me a favor and not use silent signals like as much as possible? Be direct with me, because it will save both of us time. And I remember a couple years ago, I was making friends with one of my coworkers, and I forget what exactly happened, but like I remember like I said something to her in front of somebody from district, I think, and she texted me later that day. She's like, hey, that was kind of weird for you to say in front of district. And I texted her back, I'm like, you know what, I realized that as soon as I left the room. I am so sorry. Thank you for being direct with me. I really appreciate the direct communication, because I'm not good at picking up on silent signals. And she was like, oh no, like don't even worry about it. I will be so direct. Like, I am a proponent of direct communication. That's not how she said it, but like we had agreed to be direct with each other. And she didn't know I had autism at that point. I hadn't brought it up. It wasn't something I was like actively hiding from her. Like, she followed me on Instagram, and it was April, so I had posted for Autism Month, but like it wasn't something we had talked about. But yeah, and then like a few weeks later, I don't know, like I was just getting this insanely weird vibe from her. And there were just all these little teeny tiny things I was noticing that it's like the average person who doesn't read into every social interaction she has would not notice those things. But I noticed them, and I was like, am I overthinking it? Or is she trying to send me silent signals that she doesn't want to be friends anymore? Because she did say that she would be direct with me, but I'm getting kind of the hint that she doesn't want to be friends, and that she's trying to tell me this through silent signals. And so I confronted her at work one day. I like took her aside. It was just us in the room. Like, I wasn't gonna do this in front of anybody else from work, but I was like, hey, am I overthinking it, or are you trying to like not be friends anymore? Because like if you don't want to be friends, cool. Like, I just want to know, like, am I going insane, or am I just or is this what you're trying to tell me? And she was like, no, you're overthinking it. Don't even worry, we're cool. And I was like, okay. And then like literally 3 hours later, she texts me a dissertation about how I failed to pick up on her silent signals, that she didn't want to be friends anymore, and that I was like acting weird and I didn't know how to be normal, and like the fact I was like overreacting to her telling me these things, because I was deeply offended by her saying I didn't pick up on the silent signals, because I'm like, we literally had this conversation 3 hours ago, what do you mean? And so I was saying some things that like maybe, you know, I was starting to say things that I couldn't unsay, and she was like mad that I was overreacting to this. She's like, this shouldn't even be an issue because we're coworkers, we're not friends. And I'm just like the thing is though, like I was right. Like, I read your signals, and you told me, you gaslit me and told me that you weren't sending them, and then came back 3 hours later and said you did not read my signals. And I just like, the amount of times I have misinterpreted silent signals because of my autism, to have the one time that I actually got it right be just thrown in my face like that, that was very triggering for me. And I won't get into everything that happened at work after that, but just and it was one of those things. It was like, the anxiety I was having when I started getting those silent signals, and like, I was like having this very familiar, I don't know if I want to call it anxiety, but it was like this very like strong feeling that like something is wrong. And I'd only had that feeling twice before in my life. Once was when I was 20, like basically I had a dream where something happened to one of my friends, and I woke up and I was like, wow, that's terrifying. I don't want to think that something like that would have happened to him. And then they were like, basically he was like MIA, and like I hadn't heard from him in longer than what was normal. And so I was like starting to have panic attacks. I'm like, did something happen? Did something happen? And then I found out there was a reason that I wasn't hearing from him, but it wasn't like as bad as it was in my dream. It was like in the same realm of things, but it wasn't nearly as bad as what had happened in my dream. But I was just like, oh my gosh, like because like that feeling never went away until like I heard from him, and he was like, yeah, this is what happened. And I'm just like, I was right. Like, I had a premonition that something was very, very wrong. And in a way I was correct. And then the next time it happened was summer 2020. I was texting one of my close friends, and she was like, yeah, sorry, I've just been in a really bad mental health space lately. And I was like, oh no, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I asked her a question, I think. And then she had read receipts so I could see if she had read my message or not. She hadn't opened that message in like a week, hadn't been on social media online in over a week, hadn't seen like the green dot next to her name. And I'm just like, the last thing you said to me was that you're having trouble with mental health, and then you just go completely MIA for a week. And I was like, I got that exact same feeling. And I was like, something bad has happened. Something really, really bad has happened. And I finally, like, after I had my whole panic attack about it, called her phone. And she texted me, like, I like called her and immediately hung up. I was like, I'm being insane. And then she texted me, she's like, I'm so sorry I never got back to you. I took a break from social media. I just turned my phone off for a week. And I'm like, okay, so nothing was wrong. My feeling was wrong. My gut feeling was wrong. But also, like, if the last thing you say to someone is that you're having a bad time mentally, and then you're gonna turn your phone off for a week, maybe tell them you're gonna do that. Like, because that was not a fun week for me. But yeah. So then the next time it happened was with that thing with my coworker, where I just like had that very strong feeling that like something is wrong. It's that same feeling I had, and I was right 1 out of 2 times. And then so to find that I was right, I was like, I'm now right 2 out of 3 times. And then with my ex, like around the time we broke up, I started having this feeling out of absolutely nowhere. Like there was absolutely nothing that would have triggered this feeling other than the fact that I was off my antidepressants at the time, which is a long story, but I had like gone off them for a month or so and then started taking them again, and they took 2 weeks to kick in, but I just started taking them when I started to get this feeling that like something was deeply, deeply wrong. And she coincidentally happened to, like, this is like fully a coincidence, like I'm not like I'm not insinuating that she was lying to me or anything. She was very busy with work and couldn't text me as often, and was just going through a lot. And so I was like, okay, like I need to chill because there's no reason for me to have this feeling. And I was like texting my best friend about it. She's like, you were right. There is no reason for you to have this feeling. Nothing is wrong. Like, and I was like trying to like, I don't want to say gaslight myself into believing everything was fine, but I was like, just like, you know, trying so hard to get that feeling to go away. But then the fact that I was right 2 out of 3 times before, I was like, I just can't shake it. And my friend was like, literally just ask her if everything's okay. And so I did, and then that's when we broke up, long story short. Not gonna get into any more details about it than that, but I was just like, 3 out of 4 times now, 3 out of 4 times, I was right. So if I ever have that feeling again, I'm gonna go with I'm right. And I'm gonna operate under the assumption that I'm right, because 3 out of 4 times. So all of that to say, like, just having that feeling and like not knowing if it's real or not, just greatly affects my ability to handle my social cues. Cause I'm like, it's like when I'm on edge that much, it's like my brain forgets, like some things get unplugged. I'm like, what do I do in this situation? I've done it before. I can't remember what I do. And so it's just like, I just genuinely forget what to do, and how to function, and like parts of how to function. And it's not fun. Didn't enjoy it. Would not like to experience that again. So the whole thing with like, I don't know, like, I feel like that was a little off topic, whatever. I am out of time, so I'm gonna wrap this up now. But those are just some thoughts I was having about like my experience with autism, and just how like the difference between like when I first found out, like just picking up social cues from people around me and from media before I knew I had a diagnosis, and then after I had a diagnosis, just like being careful but still like trusting my own judgment too much, and not thinking of the optics, how other people would see what I was doing, even if I technically wasn't breaking a social cue, or if I like technically wasn't doing anything like, you know, can versus should. And then just like learning to just think more critically, choose my actions more intentionally, and look at the optics of it over the years. And I still struggle with some things. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm gonna be 30 and there are still things that I struggle with. And I've been diagnosed for 15 years now. And you know, just having a diagnosis doesn't make the autism go away. I am more aware of it, and like, I do more to intentionally choose my actions now than I did back in the day. But yeah, that was what I wanted to talk about today. Don't really know how to end this now, but my next video will be writing related. Thank y'all for watching. I know this isn't my usual content. Yeah, that was that on that. Let me know how you feel about me like mixing it up a little bit, if you're only here for the writing content, or if you're okay if I just like talk about other stuff sometimes. Cause I'm vibing, okay? Like, I'm here. I'm having fun. I would very much like to keep having fun and making these videos, because it's fun times. I don't know what else to say. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see y'all next time, make a video. Bye!